I have been doing so much mixing recently, specifically mixing myself and my own original songs, because I've been working on a bunch of new songs. But because I've been mixing myself so much, like, I have finally fallen into some patterns in terms of the plugins that I use on my particular voice. And so finally, I have developed this thing that people like to call a vocal chain. Hi guys, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then welcome to the chaos. I do all things music related on this channel, from audio engineering style content, to production and songwriting challenges, to just talking about music and musician life. Today is a production and audio engineering style piece of content. If you follow any sort of music production or audio engineering content creators, then you might have heard the term vocal chain before. It's something that people like to talk about. They either talk about what's on their specific vocal chain, or they talk about what is on the vocal chain of big artists out there. You know, what specific plugins are they likely to have used? What style of compression? What type of reverb? What type of EQ settings are they likely to have to achieve the style of vocal production that they have gone for? Because obviously, different styles of vocal production take different plugins and different settings within those plugins to achieve. As a general rule, as an artist, you are going to develop a sound for your particular vocal that is going to mean that your vocal chain is essentially the same every single time. It's taken me quite a while to feel like I could make this kind of video and talk about my current vocal chain, because I have been very much experimenting in this new project, trying to figure out what I actually like in terms of a vocal production style, taking tips and tricks from fellow content creators and producers in the industry that I follow, who I've been learning from, to develop my own unique, specific vocal sound that I am going for. This is the only lead vocal I currently have that does not currently have my vocal chain loaded in on it. It's got a couple of the plugins already loaded in on it, but for the most part, it needs all the various plugins loading in and settings being put on them, obviously, and stuff like that. So I thought I would use this track to go through and create a preset in my DAW for me to load in for my vocal, because I don't I do have one in there currently that I have done previously, but it's not any of the plugins I actually load up anymore. And obviously I'm going to go through which plugins I tend to use and why. So, starting off, before I do anything else, I actually don't put my vocal chain on my lead vocal track. I have a lead vocal bus, as you can see here, and the reason for that is, on all of the tracks I've been working on so far, I have done doubles in certain places of the lead vocal, and these doubles are essentially just they're different takes of the lead vocal that I did in the booth, that I have then panned left and right, and I want them to be treated pretty much the same as the rest of the lead vocal. There will sometimes be things that I might do a little differently, like I might send both of these to a different reverb that the actual lead vocal might not go to. Pretty much most of the time, the doubles are going to be treated exactly the same as that main lead vocal take. And it seems silly to copy over all those plugins and have them running on another channel when they don't need to be, when I can just send everything out to a bus track. So as you can see, my lead vocal here doesn't go to my stereo out, it goes to bus 8, and bus 8 is this lead vox bus. So the first plugin that I put on my vocal chain is a de-esser. Specifically, it is the Eosis. I have no idea how to pronounce this, but it is this de-esser. It's a really good de-esser. It comes with my Slate digital subscription. I like it so much better than the Logic stock de-esser. I think it does a much better job of de-essing nice and smoothly, and it doesn't take out too much of the high end when it does it. And I know that I could use mic techniques to reduce sibilance and stuff, but I prefer to just have a direct take into the microphone. I like having those nice clear consonants. So I do like this particular sound much better than I do the off-axis sound. I don't like the off-axis sound as much. So it is just easier just to reduce those. The next thing I then go for is surgical EQ. And I use, again, one of the plugins from my Slate digital subscription. I did a whole video about how much I love this EQ, the Infinity EQ. It's currently got some settings on it. I don't know if these would be settings that I necessarily... quite often will probably dip out around here. Sometimes it'll be closer to the 300. It depends on the exact key I'm singing in and the exact style of my voice, whether I'm doing more of a head voice or a chest voice, but quite often there are some nasal tones around there. I'm gonna leave that band on for this preset because I do pretty much always use a band there, and obviously if I don't need that band I just delete it. I am not sure if this frequency is a frequency in my voice. I'm not sure if it's a frequency that those microphones are just picking up in particular, or if it's a frequency in the booth, but it also seems to be in the room because I quite often have to dip this out in my acoustic guitar as well, and both my acoustic guitars seem to do it. So I originally thought maybe it was a frequency in the room, but it happens in the booth as well. So now I'm wondering, is it like a frequency that the microphones are just picking up on in particular amount? Because there has never been a time when I've recorded a vocal and I haven't needed to dip that frequency out, because whether it's my chest voice, my belt, my head voice, it's in every single one it pokes through. This band, however, though, yeah, I'm gonna exit for now because I want to save this preset and I can just put it back in. I'll end up fiddling with that EQ anyway, so it doesn't matter. But that's my EQ. Just, you know, generally I'll roll those off, and generally I will have to dip at least 2 frequencies, usually these 2. The next thing that I always put on is a compressor. And I was at one point putting on, where is it? The Universal Audio LA2A compressor, mostly just because everybody talks about how good that is for lead vocals. It does have a nice tone, and sometimes I will still go for that compressor, but I overall have not actually been leaning for that one quite as much. And I've gone back to just using the Logic stock compressor, and I think this is the one that I'm gonna put on my vocal chain, because obviously I can just swap that compressor out if I decide I actually want to use the LA2A instead. And the reason I tend to use this one more, I'm just going to turn that auto gain off because it's really annoying how it does that. I tend to use this one more for the main reason being that it is actually multiple compressors in one. I will either go for this one, or I'll go for the one that is, which one is it? It's this one at the end here, isn't it? This one, which I believe is actually supposed to be based on the LA2A compressor. I think I like this one better than I do the Universal Audio one. I just really like having the option to be able to change more of the settings, and I think this is the compressor I would want on my main vocal chain preset to go to, because it's gonna offer me more variation. I'm more likely to get the sound that I want quicker using this compressor than I am loading in the LA2A. So I'm gonna leave it set to, I actually go for this one more often, I think, than I do the other one. So I'm gonna leave it set to this one. But I usually have it set around that 3-to-1 kind of mark. And I usually have it set on a quite fast attack. So I'm going to say it's like 5 milliseconds of attack as like the more automatic one, because I'm looking to bring down those really stabby out bits. Next, I actually put on a plugin that is multiple plugins in one. So in my Slate Digital subscription, I have this plugin called Virtual Mix Rack, and Virtual Mix Rack is just, it's this basically. This is a mix rack, and this is a mix rack. It always loads this as a preset, and I need to actually save my own preset in this now. And there are a few plugins that I might throw on in this. Some of them are here now, but not all of them. So, but the next thing I quite often like to go on is a mic preamp one. So I only have, in terms of options at the moment, the mic preamps in my Scarlett interface, or the Focusrite preamp that I've got, a separate preamp that I've got. I did a video comparing them if you would like to have a look at that. I am absolutely in love with the sound of a Neve preamp. That is what was used in the studio that I used to go to. I really loved the sound that they give. I know that, you know, that's not going to be an unpopular opinion there. They're held in very high esteem. They're also really expensive. So I'm not going to get a Neve preamp anytime soon. So for now, I just have to live vicariously through these little virtual preamps that they've got in here. So this one, apparently, is based off of a German tube amp, whereas this one is described as being based off of a British preamp. And given the look of it, people suspect, as I do, that this is based off of a Neve preamp. So it's not shocking that I really like this particular preamp modeler, so I quite often put this on. The next thing I add in this particular one is another compressor, and I just tend to go for, where is it? This one. It's actually a compressor and a gate. I basically never use the gate on it though. I just use the compressor. I leave it not set to a fast attack. I leave it set to a slower attack. Just level things out a little bit more and just get it nice and even. I have a very dynamic vocal range. Quite often I will also need to automate to really get the vocal to sit nicely. Just compression doesn't tend to work very well, because what I actually quite often need to do is just lift up those lower, quieter bits that bit more, because I quite often will do quite quiet and sound quite loud, and I don't like to over compress. And then this EQ goes on. I find I'm leaning towards a particular shaping in terms of EQ of around the 10k kind of mark. I boost by just about 1.5 to 2 decibels, so I'm going to leave it around there. And then I find that around this 1.5 mark, I want to bring it down a little bit. And I tend to want to boost probably somewhere around between 600 and 800. It depends where exactly, based on whatever is ringing, because there's usually a frequency in around here that is ringing out a bit in my voice that I don't want to boost too much, but I do tend to boost somewhere around the 600 mark by just literally a tiny bit. It just gives a bit more body to my voice, and I find it's particularly good for me to boost there for those quieter bits. Those quieter bits tend to come through stronger. I also quite often put this on because I do like the shimmer, and sometimes I like the thickness, but I quite often don't put it on rather than use the shimmer. If I want the thickness, I'll put this on, but I don't put it on if all I want is a bit of shimmer. If all I want is a bit of shimmer, then I put on the next plugin we're going to talk about. Should I leave that one? So I'm actually going to take that one out, because I'm more often than not, I don't put that on. I put this on instead. Another Slate Digital one, and it's called Fresh Air. You might have seen some people talk about this particular plugin. I love this. There are a few different plugins out there that are air plugins, and adding air basically just means boosting around those higher frequencies again. This boosts those higher frequencies better, I think, than just using that EQ. Mostly because you can boost the mid-air and the high air. And basically this is the really high sparkle around that sort of 10k mark. And this is more of a mid-high sort of presence. I can more easily sort of balance between the two. It really does just add that slight shimmer. Sometimes when I'm boosting with just one of my EQ plugins and I do a little high shelf, it doesn't seem to add in that shimmer in that nice subtle way quite as much. But I pretty much always put it on, but not always. Quite often there are other plugins I might put in here. I know some people are going to be like, oh, that's a lot of plugins already to use, but bear in mind, one of these plugins is literally a preamp modeler because I don't have a really fancy preamp. Oh, I will also say, you might notice that Melodyne is missing from this. Like, I haven't put any tuning on here, and I do have Melodyne. I do put Melodyne on my vocals. I do tune my vocals because, again, I like that produced sound. But the reason it's not on my vocal chain, the first thing I tend to do is I'll tune, and then I will bounce that down, and then I tend to like trim out like breaths and weird little clicks and stuff that I don't want in there. I trim out all the space that I don't need. So I'm not counting it as like part of my vocal chain in this video, because I'm more thinking about like the mix chain, the plugins that I'm putting on to mix this. The last thing obviously that then goes in a vocal chain is reverb, but obviously I tend to put my reverb on a bus, especially considering one reverb I put on, this reverb, is going to be my lead Vox Verb Short. And this reverb, I tend to send almost every instrument in the track to this same reverb. The software instruments, I might not feel the need to send them, but I will send my acoustic guitar to this same reverb, definitely. Because I want my vocal and my guitar and my violin to all sound like they were recorded in the same room. And this first reverb I put on, don't put on like a big whole reverb. I put on a really small, short decay room reverb, and I always either use either my Slate Digital Verb Suite Classics, which is my favorite reverb, or I use Space Designer. I use the Slate Digital one slightly more often, so I'm going to put that one on because there is a preset in here that I particularly like to use as like the first one. Where is it? There's one that's called like Music Club or something like that. Where is it? There it is. I love this preset.
Of the loss, things I never had, I suppose that's the cost. I'm sick of the loss, things I never had.
I do like almost a feeling of a live vocal sound still, and I get that through the reverb a little bit, that ambiance. So I pretty much always use that one. So I'm going to leave that on as like the preset, and then I will always do a second reverb or delay on my vocal, either a reverb or a delay, but it'll either be another reverb that's really long, that's got more feedback in it, you know, more interest. It'll either be some sort of plate, maybe. I might use Chromaverb and use a plate on Chromaverb. I quite like a few plates on Chromaverb. I might use the Verb Suite Classics again. I might use Space Designer again and go for one of their really big hall type sounds, or I might throw Valhalla on. It really varies what the second reverb is, or delay. I might go for a delay instead. I've used stereo delay on one of these tracks that I've been working on recently. So yeah, it really, really, really varies which plugin I actually go for this second reverb or delay. I think this all is set up so that it should work now. So that when I now save this, Echo vocal chain, and so now I have a preset that I can load in every single time. So I don't have to like load in each of these plugins individually anymore. I can just load in that preset and then switch things off, go through. But that will make the process quicker for the next few songs that I work on, because I probably won't change much about this unless I discover a particular plugin that I then start using on everything. Who knows? But for now, this is what I find is my sound. So when you're listening to the new tracks when they come out, you'll be able to hear what this vocal chain actually ends up sounding like. Anywho, so that is my vocal chain. Feel free to share your own vocal chain in the comments if you are also a producery, home studio-y type of person and you've got your own go-to plugins. What plugins go on your vocal chain generally? What do you think of mine? Do you think I have too many plugins on it? If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy my content on this channel in general, in which case you might want to hit that subscribe button. But I know that that is a big decision to make, so do feel free to check out some of the other videos on this channel before you decide one way or the other. There'll be something recommended on the end screen for you. If you want to follow me on all of my socials, they are linked in the description below. Or you want to follow the new artist socials so that when these songs are ready to go out in the world, you can hear them first. They're all linked in the description below. There's also a link down there to my Buy Me a Coffee, which I'll be updating soon. There is a membership on there you can join that gets you exclusive content, or you can just send one-off donations on there if you just wanted to send me a little tip to say, nice video, mate. That is everything. So I shall love you and leave you guys and see you next time with another fun music related video of some sort.
You know that in all 5 hours, so let's see.